Today, I want to talk about Zoran Mamdani and why he's leading. The answer is there is something deeply wrong with young people in this country. We'll get to all of that. Plus, Senator Bill Hagerty from Tennessee stops by to talk about the FBI targeting him. We get to President Trump in Asia and all the rest of the news. First, tonight, Friendly Fire returns for episode 2. Join me, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and a special appearance from our newest Daily Wire host, live at 7 p.m. Eastern on Daily Wire Plus. I'd love to tell you exactly what's going to happen, but actually, I don't know. There's no script, no moderator, no plan. It's 4 of the most trusted voices in conservative media debating, discussing, disagreeing, while the entire internet watches and comments in real time. Watch Friendly Fire tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. And if you're not a member yet, join for as little as $7 a month with our deal of the decade at dailywire.com/subscribe. Well, there's something bizarre going on in this New York City election, this mayoral election. The thing that's bizarre is that people don't actually love Zoran Mamdani's policies, but he's very likely to win anyway. According to the New York Post, Zoran Mamdani could become mayor without a majority of support, thanks to Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa splitting the vote. And despite New Yorkers opposing his socialist policies, a poll released on Tuesday found Mamdani had a 15-point lead over runner-up independent candidates Cuomo in the New Manhattan Institute survey, a wider margin than other polls showing a bit of a tightening of the race. He was ahead 43-28. Sliwa was at 19%. Again, as all these polls are showing, if Sliwa dropped out, there'd be a decent shot for Andrew Cuomo to win the race. But what's most important about this particular poll shows that when it comes to the actual policies that Mamdani is pushing, people don't actually like those policies very much. So, for example, 58% of respondents feared that making buses free could make them into rooming homeless shelters, while 33% believed all fares should be eliminated. So, in other words, by a 25% margin, people actually believed that this free buses idea is incredibly stupid. His proposal to get rid of the city's gifted and talented program is wildly unpopular. 64% of the same voters who are giving a plurality of their vote to Mamdani believe that gifted and talented should be expanded. Only 21% believe that it should be scaled back in early grades. When it comes to repealing bail reform laws and returning to the bail system before 2019, 55% want to go back before no cash bail. Only 29% back the current program, which is what Mamdani backs. So, in other words, his policies are not all that popular among voters, but Mamdani himself is significantly more popular with voters. Now, there are a few explanations for this. One explanation is that he's running against some pretty bad competition. Andrew Cuomo is a particularly bad candidate. Mayor Eric Adams is deeply unpopular. But there is something else going on here. And the thing that's going on is Generation Z. Now, I know there are a lot of people on the right who have been talking up Generation Z. It's going to be the most conservative generation. It's a rising wave. Now, there is a segment of Gen Z, particularly young white men, who are moving to the right. There is some poll support for this. But in general, Generation Z is the most left generation by a country mile. It is not close. They are far to the left of the general population on every single issue. And this sort of bizarre idea that Generation Z is going to carry us forward into a conservative future, I'm not seeing the evidence for that as a general matter. Mamdani being a perfect encapsulation of this. So, in the latest Suffolk poll on the New York City mayoral race, which has Mamdani leading Cuomo 44-34, Mamdani actually trails among all voters aged 45 plus. Among voters aged 35 to 44, he runs ahead by about 23 points against Cuomo. But among voters who are 18 to 34, so that'd be like Gen Z voters and maybe like tail end millennials, Mamdani runs ahead by 61 points. By 61 points. Okay, that's the gap. That doesn't mean he has 61% support. That means he has high 70s support among people 18 to 34 voting in New York City, according to that poll. And this is not a rarity. Polls of young people show that they are wildly to the left of their forebears on pretty much every single issue. Right now, according to YouGov, President Trump's current approval rating among those under the age of 30 is 29%. According to a recent poll from Cato Institute and YouGov, some 62% of Americans aged 18 to 29 say they are favorable toward socialism. So almost 2/3 say they are favorable toward socialism. There was a spring 2025 Yale Youth poll, and it found that younger voters were consistently far to the left of the general population on everything from trans agenda issues to abortion to immigration. So the real question is, what is going wrong? Why are young people like this? Now, again, there's always this sort of explanation that young people, when they're young, they're naive, they don't pay taxes, they're not ushered into an actual real life where they're participating in the normal institutions of daily activity. And so they can kind of live in airy fairyland where everything is handed to them on a silver platter. And there's truth to that. We have delayed adulthood for young people all the way into their 30s. But there's something else going on too. And that is that young people have been told that they never have to enter adulthood. That in fact, everything ought to be handed to them. And that when things are not handed to them, either it's because they themselves have some sort of deep abiding illness or society itself is victimizing them in some way. According to Harmony Healthcare IT, they did a poll of young people. 46% of Gen Z has been diagnosed with a mental health condition. Almost half. Almost half. So either we have hit a radical genetic bottleneck here, or you have wild overdiagnosis of a population that is anxiety prone and believes there is a sort of virtue in it. 37% suspect they have an undiagnosed mental condition. More than 2 in 5, more than 40% of Generation Z feels that, quote, their generation isn't set up for success. Fewer than half of all Americans under the age of 35 believe they will ever have children. So all the things that would normally usher you into a more mature view of life, getting married, having kids, holding a job, paying taxes, these are things Generation Z is apparently not interested in doing and doesn't believe that they will ever do. Now again, this is not because Gen Z is some sort of truly victimized generation. In all the history of all the humans on all the planet, the idea that American Generation Z is somehow the greatest victimhood class we have ever had is insane and bizarre. In fact, more Generation Z people hold degrees than millennials and Gen Xers did at their age. According to The Economist, the typical 25-year-old Gen Zer has an annual household income of over $40,000, more than 50% above baby boomers at the same age. According to Bank of America, Generation Z will be the largest and richest generation in American history within just 10 years. So what's going wrong? What's happening right here? I mean, we really do have to understand that there is a radical thing that is happening with young people. It's happening on both the left and the right. The radical thing that is happening on the left is, in fact, a grievance culture that is resulting in revolutionary thinking. And on the right, something very similar, a grievance culture that is resulting in a different sort of revolutionary thinking. But there's some horseshoe theory going on, and these two revolutionary movements can sometimes hold hands. You see it really in sort of crystallized fashion with the Mamdani campaign. The Democratic Socialists of America, they are taking over the Democratic Party. We'll get into precisely how and why that's happening. First, there's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company. They don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who served with honor. When they come home, that brotherhood, that support network they had in the military, too often it disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill that gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values. And with talk, text, plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a lot of money. I use Pure Talk myself. I've been a subscriber to Pure Talk for years. If I trust them with my phone calls, why wouldn't you? Go to puretalk.com/Shapiro to make the switch today. Again, head on over to puretalk.com/Shapiro. Switch to America's wireless company. Pure Talk, they're doing good stuff with the money you pay them. You're paying them less money and you're getting great coverage. So exactly what do you have to lose? Go check them out right now. puretalk.com/Shapiro. That's puretalk.com/Shapiro. Also, when we started Daily Wire, we had to figure everything out with not a lot of help. Editorial guidelines, studio setup, production schedule, branding. It was overwhelming. New decisions were necessary every day. Finding that one tool that simplifies everything when starting a business becomes a game changer and a lifesaver. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. We even use it for our own Daily Wire shop to make sure things are running smoothly and efficiently so you can get the goods. Well, you might be asking, what if I can't design a website or I'm worried people haven't heard of my brand? Not a problem. Shopify's got you covered from the start with beautiful, ready-to-go templates that match your brand style and help you find your customers through easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. And if you need a hand with everyday tasks, their AI tools created specifically for commerce can help enhance product images, write descriptions, and more. Plus, their award-winning customer support is available 24/7 to share advice if you ever get stuck. Turn those dreams into and give them the best shot at success with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Shapiro. Head on over to shopify.com/Shapiro. Shopify.com/Shapiro. So Canary Mission, which is a nonprofit that examines political issues from a wide variety of sort of more right-leaning perspectives. They have a whole video they did looking at the impact of the Democratic Socialists of America. And there's no question the DSA has had an outsized impact on the Democratic Party. AOC was a charter member of the DSA. Mamdani is a DSA guy. The DSA is the jet fuel for the modern Democratic Party. And this is not a left-leaning, mildly progressive movement. This is a revolutionary movement, a truly revolutionary movement. Here's a bit of the Canary Mission investigation.
DSA are revolutionaries, and the Democrats are their first victims. And in city after city, DSA victories prove their plan works.
I think that the model that we used in New York is 100% replicatable.
And just like the cuckoo, once the DSA grows strong, it pushes the true Democrats out, hollowing the party from within.
Building towards political independence and tearing apart the Democratic Party.
The DSA is not here to strengthen the Democratic Party. It is here to consume it.
We're not here to make the Democrats a little bit better. We're here to actually enact socialism. And socialism is not just better capitalism. It's overthrowing the entire capitalist state.
It's our duty, DSA, to cultivate this power.
The cuckoo is in the nest, and New York City is poised to elect not a Democrat, but Zohran Mamdani, an extremist within the DSA.
We understand that winning an election is not an end. It is a means to an end.
That the most important thing that we can do is take that empire down from within.
Ultimately to overthrow our own empire.
We need a movement that can drive a stake through the heart of the empire.
We need to orient ourselves towards insurrection.
So, how exactly does that kind of movement take over the Democratic Party? Where does it come from? The answer is that it's been inculcated by the boomers for generations. Okay, the boomers and the millennials are responsible for their children. If your child ends up being a radical, it's difficult to say that you had nothing to do with it. In some cases, you didn't. In some cases, but that's a rarity. Usually, it is because the boomers and the millennials decided to inculcate a brand of vague anti-Americanism that then metastasized into a very virulent, cancerous form of anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism. This is why whenever I hear parents talk about their kids and they say, I'm just giving them the tools to think. I'm not telling them what to think, what values to hold. That's bad parenting. You should be telling your kids what values to hold. That is actually the number one thing you should be doing as a parent. The most important thing you can do as a parent is to become part of that chain that Edmund Burke talks about between the past and the future, maintaining the wisdom of generations and passing that on to your kids. If you're not doing that, you're not doing your job as a parent. Instead, what we do is we've been farming out our kids to universities filled with radicals who then teach the kids all the same sort of radical politics. Fascinating piece from the New York Times about Mamdani called How a Small Elite College in Maine Influenced Mamdani's Worldview. Now remember, Zohran Mamdani is a member of the most privileged class of humans ever to walk the earth. In fact, he's uniquely privileged because he and his family escaped a third world hellhole called Uganda, and they came to the United States. And his mom became a famous film producer, and his dad became a professor at Columbia University. Both of them hate America. And then they sent him to a bunch of very pricey private schools, as well as to a very pricey college. And then he never held a job. And then he went to the assembly and he missed half of his votes while giving himself a raise. And then he ran for mayor. This is a person who has lived high on the hog, shall we say. And yet his entire worldview is revolution against that very system. The system must be destroyed from within. This is one of the great lies about revolutions historically, is that revolutions are led by the proletariat. And it's a bunch of very impoverished people who kind of rise up and take power. That is not true. It has never been true. It is typically a member of what would be called by the Marxists the bourgeois classes, who act as a sort of revolutionary vanguard in order to remake the system. They tend to be frustrated intellectuals, people who didn't get what they deserve, who are angry at their parents, who are angry at the world because they were on the cusp of success, but then success ran away from them. I talk about this at length in Lions and Scavengers, my book. Mamdani is like the apex predator of the scavengers. He really is. So the New York Times writes about this, Jeremy Peters reporting, quote, "It wasn't so much what Zohran Mamdani said, it was how he said it. We're going to stand up for Haiti because you taught the world about freedom," the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York exclaimed to an elated crowd at a Haitian music festival in June. Mamdani pronounced the island's name Haiti, near perfect Creole elocution. "When I heard him say that, I smiled," recalled Brian Purnell, one of Mr. Mamdani's former professors at Bowdoin College. He also noted that Mr. Mamdani's reference to freedom was a nod to Haiti's status as the first republic founded by former slaves. That's straight out of the lessons from the Haitian Revolution that we teach in Africana Studies, said Dr. Purnell, who is now the chair of the Africana Studies department at Mamdani's alma mater. I will claim that. So, what exactly is the background for Mamdani? Quote, he would become one of the most visible representations of a new generation of progressives, whose formative years as young adults were shaped by elite colleges where, over the last decade, theories of social and racial justice became even more deeply ingrained in liberal arts education. He graduated in 2014 from Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine, with a bachelor's in Africana Studies. Now, again, this is the kind of study regimen that creates career useless people. You can't get a job as an Africana Studies major outside of politics or social work or being an Africana Studies professor. It doesn't actually create a usable degree in any way. His experience there, readings of critical race theorists in the classroom, and activism for left-wing causes on campus is emblematic of the highly charged debate over what is taught in American universities. What did he actually learn at Bowdoin? Mamdani's campaign did not respond to requests for comments about his college years, but professors there challenged the idea his education was politically circumscribed, and they described a serious student who was interested in history and sociology. Yeah, I think not. He formed a chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine, which is a radical anti-Semitic group. He tried to get Bowdoin to join an academic boycott of Israel. He, again, joined a studies department that was deeply ensconced in the idea that America is racist, colonialist, and filled with state violence. That's where he first read Frantz Fanon. Again, he's like directly from my book, Lions and Scavengers. Fanon is like, again, the kind of spokesperson for what I call the barbarian mindset. This idea that all ills all over the world are the fault of the West, and therefore the West must import these barbarians into our own countries in order to destroy us from within as a sort of spiritual penance for our victimization campaign. Apparently, Mamdani stood out to his professors. His professor said, quote, it's rare for someone to come to college and say, I want to major in Africana Studies. Well, yes, I can imagine. I can imagine that that's the case. So, again, this is where it comes from. We inculcate this sort of stuff in our kids at the university level. We tell an entire generation of people that they are, in fact, victims of a system that has made them the most wealthy, prosperous, and free people in the history of planet Earth. And then we sell them the soap that if you grant power to one of these people, one of these revolutionaries, that they will fix all of your problems. There are a lot of politicians willing to sell that soap, whether it is Mamdani on the left or a wide variety of politicians on the populist right who also say the same thing to the right-wing version of this. The left-wing version of the grievance campaign is that America is an awful, terribly racist place that has aggrieved third world minorities and cracked down on gays and lesbians, and therefore must be brought low by the revolutionaries. Capitalism has brought us all to this horrible fate. On the right, there is an equal and opposite movement. It is growing in power. It has not taken over the Republican Party yet, but it's attempting to. And that right-wing movement is saying the same thing, except it sort of reverses the victimhood class. The victimhood class here would be white Christian males, and the idea would be that white Christian males have been brought low by the system, and that therefore the only corrective to that is a complete revolution against capitalism, meritocracy, and all the rest. Now, at the seed of both of these movements, there is a grain of truth. There is truth to the idea that America, historically speaking, was not good to black people. That America, historically speaking, was not good to certain classes of immigrants. But the idea that that's because the American system is bad, that's not a flaw with the system, that's the feature of the system, that's wrong. The same thing is true on the right. When people say white Christian males have been put under boot by the system, there's certainly truth to the idea that there is discriminatory policy, both socially and in governmental policy, that has discriminated against white Christian males over the course of the last 30, 40, 50 years. There's truth to that. But the idea that that is emblematic of the constitutional system or meritocracy or capitalism, and the only solution is some sort of dictatorship of the white Christian male proletariat, overthrowing constitutional norms and boundaries, going after minorities, that this somehow is the solution, that is just as revolutionary from the opposite point of view. And in both cases, that sort of crap is being fostered and fomented by boomers who wink and nod at this sort of stuff as jet fuel for their own ambitions, or who see these people as sort of the more passionate offspring of their own ideological predilections. All right, coming up, Jon Stewart performs unspeakable acts on Zoran Mamdani. That it seems to me is what's happening now, which is really quite awful. First, these days everything feels expensive. Whether it's a quick trip to the grocery store or grabbing takeout, it's easier to brace for that higher price than what you actually pay. In fact, many people do the same with life insurance. 72% of Americans overestimate how much life insurance costs. That's where Policy Genius comes in, making it fast, simple, and surprisingly affordable to get covered, so your loved ones have a financial safety net. See if Policy Genius can help you find 20-year life insurance policies starting at just $276 a year for $1 million in coverage. Shopping for life insurance can feel overwhelming, but Policy Genius makes the whole process simple and stress-free. In just a few clicks, you can compare quotes from top insurers across the country to find coverage that actually fits your needs and your budget. Their team of licensed agents is there every step of the way, answering questions, handling the paperwork, even advocating for you so you don't have to worry about the fine print. Instead of leaving you guessing, Policy Genius lays out your options clearly, coverage amounts, prices, terms, so you can make a confident choice. With thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot, it's no wonder Policy Genius is trusted as the nation's leading online insurance marketplace for people looking to protect their own families. Now, I've got life insurance, like a lot of it. It's really important. You got to make sure your family's taken care of in case, God forbid, you plots. Secure your family's future with Policy Genius. Head on over to policygenius.com/Shapiro to compare life insurance quotes from top companies and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Shapiro. Also, buy gold and get free silver. That is correct. For every $5,000 you purchase from Birch Gold Group this month, in advance of Veterans Day, they'll send you a free patriotic silver round that commemorates the Gadsden and American flags. Gold just hit $4,000 an ounce. It's up 50% since the beginning of the year. Birch Gold can help you own more precious metals by converting an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Plus, they'll send you free silver honoring our veterans on qualifying purchases. And if you're current or former military, Birch Gold has a special offer just for you. They're waiving custodial fees for the first year on investments of any amount. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, many of whom are my listeners, I encourage you to diversify your savings into gold. Again, I just re-upped on my gold holdings from Birch Gold pretty recently. It's a very easy process. You call them, you ask your questions, get answers, and next thing you know, you got the gold in your safe. Text my name, Ben, to the number 989898 for a free info kit and to claim your eligibility for free silver with qualifying purchase before the end of the month. Again, text my name, Ben, to 989898. Do it today. So Jon Stewart, who is now well into his 60s, he's no longer the cool kid in school who is making the funny smug faces at the very, very short clips taken out of context. Now he is passing the baton to Zoran Mamdani. Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart has always been horrible for our body politic. I've been critical of Jon Stewart since the very first moment because Jon Stewart turned news into comedy, but then pretended that he was a news person. So he'd do the clown nose on, clown nose off routine, which has allowed him to hide behind his sanctified status as a pseudo-comedian in order to be incredibly scurrilous about how he pursues politics. Well, now Stewart has anointed Mamdani Jackie Robinson because he has to fit Mamdani somehow into his boomer framework. Right? The boomer framework that basically says that as long as you are brown and you are going to be elected to a position, that means that you're being elected to the position in a historic way, fighting back against white supremacy. This is how, again, Zoran Mamdani would remain a fringe figure in the DSA, except for the fact that he does have older generations fostering him, funding him, paying for him. And Mamdani is emblematic of his generation, just as Stewart is emblematic of his generation on the left. Here you go.
I wish you all the best. Honestly, I think any New Yorker who looks at someone getting an opportunity, who's representing communities that have not been as represented, a Muslim, a young person, a progressive, a democratic socialist, there are so many different communities that are looking to you. And this, I hate to put it on you, as a bit of a Jackie Robinson moment. And I know that probably wields
he also
some
hates
weight,
for him to put that on him.
But man, oh man, what an exciting opportunity.
Wow. I mean, with tough questions like that, he's going to need to light a cigarette after that, Mamdani. My goodness. Jon Stewart calling him Jackie Robinson. Again, without the help of this pathetic generation, this older generation, fostering the rise of the radicals, it couldn't happen. It would not be possible. But Jon Stewart didn't just gush over Mamdani there by calling him Jackie Robinson, which is utterly inapt. It's ridiculous. The idea that Zoran Mamdani has faced any serious level of discrimination in the United States is nuts. It is crazy. Jackie Robinson was a black man who faced death threats and slurs every day of his playing career and long after for the great crime of being a black man playing baseball. Zoran Mamdani has been rewarded and feted and handed everything this country has to offer specifically because of his ethnic diversity and immigrant background. And somehow he's akin to Jackie Robinson. But that was just the beginning.
And what I love hearing about this is one of the things that's been so frustrating in our politics is so much of it has been defined over these last 10 years as the negative case against someone. And finally, and I think this is not blowing smoke, I think you've made an affirmative case for people. I think the enthusiasm that they have for you is because you've made an affirmative case that's not about protecting something that's going to be lost or a bad man that's over there. It's about an idea that you have. And it surprised me that the Democratic establishment did not embrace that energy.
Oh, but they have. Oh, but this is the part where Stewart is wrong. They have. Stewart is the Democratic establishment. I mean, it's hard to say that Kathy Hochul isn't the Democratic establishment. Kathy Hochul literally appeared on stage with Mamdani 2 nights ago, even while she says that she's not going to do any of the things that he wants her to do. Because, again, for the boomers, it's all about that revolutionary energy. Now, here's the thing about revolutionary energy. Everyone who hopes to harness the revolutionary energy and channel it toward more moderate goals fails. The revolutionary energy always eats everything around it. It is a universal acid. It eats right through the floor. You cannot contain this sort of nuclear energy with cement. It's not going to work. It'll burn right through the floor. It'll go right down to China. China syndrome here. Well, here's Kathy Hochul saying, well, you know, I'm not going to do the kind of tax increases that Mamdani's. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because time is passing Kathy Hochul by. She fed the alligator, and now the alligator is going to eat her.
You've previously said that you wouldn't be raising taxes. Have you reconsidered that stance?
No, I would say one energetic rally does not get me to change my positions, I assure you. But I do hear people's voices. I process what everybody says, but I'm also have to balance governing this state and making sure that those people who are actually the reason we have a generous, supportive budget that helps lift people up, it's their revenues that we tax.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Again, go back to that poll. New Yorkers don't like Mamdani's ideas, but they want to be part of the revolution. They want to feel part of the thing because too many New Yorkers, particularly young New Yorkers, whose elders have massaged them and have treated them with kid gloves and have never told them no, have told them that all of their own failures, all of their own sicknesses, all of their own shortcomings are not their fault and are not correctable by them. They're only correctable by a shift in the system. Those people have made their bed, and now they're going to have to lie in it. And once this energy is loosed, it cannot be contained. The Democrats have loosed the whirlwind, and it is going to eat them now. So there's some new polls, for example, up in Maine, showing that Graham Plattner, the Nazi-tattooed candidate, who's supposedly an oyster farmer, but actually is the scion of apparently relative wealth. Well, after that news came out that he has a Nazi tattoo, which he then had covered up, there was a poll showing that the current Maine governor jumped in front of him in the race by a couple of points. That is not going to last. It is going to recede because the revolutionary energy has been unleashed now. Here is a video from Alex Seitzwald, the reporter, of the cars outside of a Graham Plattner event in Maine. I mean, this is a lot of people showing up for Graham Plattner in Maine. Like a lot of people showing up for the Nazi tattoo guy. Why? Well, because he's got that revolutionary energy, and that's all that matters. And people will make excuses for him. The revolutionaries will always have people who justify them, who soft pedal them, who allow them to lie about their own positions in order to achieve power. I mean, you saw in that Canary Mission video, the basic idea put forward by DSA members that they're going to say the things they need to do in order to obtain power. They're going to lie in order to obtain power, and then they're going to do the revolutionary stuff. That's always true. And the question is, who lets them get away with the lies? Who helps them massage those beliefs into something palatable? Well, the answer is MSNBC does it for people like Graham Plattner. Here he was trying to make excuses to Jen Psaki about the Nazi tattoo.
We were contacted. We were asked if I had a tattoo that had, Nazi overtones. I have had this thing for ages, and it had never once come up. At that point, we looked at it, we saw what they sent, and, it's a stylized skull and crossbones. Stylized skull and crossbones are very popular with military units for obvious reasons, but it looked quite similar. And at that point, I don't want something like that on my body. That is going to make people think I have any kind of ideological similarity to something that is essentially so antithetical to my politics. So I was more than happy to get it covered up.
So you learned in October, and as soon as you learned, you got it covered up immediately, within days, within a day. What was the process there?
It was a busy weekend when we found out. I didn't get to it, I think, until that Tuesday. But yeah, it was within a few days.
Well, again, this attempt to cover for it's not because the left is somehow really upset about the Nazi tattoo and they're happy that he got rid of it. It's because the whole goal is to cover for the radicals, to allow the radicals free reign. That is the entire goal here. And this is how you end up with Zoran Mamdani as a radical leader in New York. And it's why the future of the Democratic Party is with radicalism, because there is no systemic immune system rejection of this radicalism. It doesn't exist anymore. Now, the same thing seems to be happening on the right, and it is a real problem because it turns out that the vast majority of Americans are normies. The vast majority of Americans like meritocracy. The vast majority of Americans believe in the traditional American dream, meaning economic progress for them and for their children, meaning capacity to build community and church and live in freedom. The vast majority of Americans like the Constitution and the Declaration. In other words, the vast majority of Americans like the country. They like America. But if you let the radical revolutionary vanguard take over your party out of some sort of benighted idea that you must unite with the radicals in order to achieve victory, you're not going to achieve victory, number one, because Democrats are in rough waters because of what they've done here. But number two, the victory that you achieve will be Pyrrhic because you will have sacrificed the thing that you actually care about to the people who hate that thing, all in the name of garnering enthusiasm from the young. And by the way, if this were really working out great for the young, why are they so depressed? Why are they so upset? Why are they so anxious? Why aren't they getting married or reproducing? It turns out that inculcating a victimhood grievance mentality in an entire generation of people doesn't just make the country work, it makes those people miserable to boot. Folks, Fast Facts is coming up in just a moment. First, real men don't apologize for being men. They build, they protect, they do the hard work that keeps the world running. In the classic story that defined part of the past decade of the Daily Wire, we said boys are boys, girls are girls, and then Harry's Razors called it hate speech and pulled their ads. So we did what men with a backbone do. We built our own company, Jeremy's Razors. Now we're celebrating with the shave deal of the decade. 2 full years of woke-free shaves for just 21 cents a day. 730 days of not funding corporations that hate your values. 730 days of shaving like a man who stands his ground. Be a man the world needs. Shave like one. Look at this. I want to show you this razor. Do you see this? It's magnificent. This is the Precision 5. And look at this. Look at this razor. It's a beautifully weighted handle. And the blades, sharp as the sword of truth. Go check it out right now. Go to jeremysrazors.com. Grab the shave deal of the decade today. Well, now it's time for some fast facts. Speaking of radicalism and the impacts on policy that radicalism can have, Breitbart has a good report out today based on a New York Times report about the kiddie stroll sex market on LA's Figueroa Street. According to the New York Times, for the 77th Street Division, which covers the northern half of the Figueroa corridor, prostitution had always been a problem. But in recent years, the officers had seen the magnitude of child sex trafficking explode. Now, you should know that Figueroa is just in the middle of downtown. Gangs that had long sold drugs began to take advantage of Figueroa's lucrative opportunity. With a dozen girls, one trafficker could easily make $12,000 a night. Drugs are sold once and gone forever, but girls can be resold indefinitely, said Police Sergeant Alvaro Navarro, who had been in the division for 2 decades. Motel owners who noticed the parades of customers but feared the gang's retribution kept quiet. There is one problem. According to the New York Times, California repealed the law allowing the police to arrest women who loitered with the intent to engage in prostitution. That repeal was known as SB 357, and it was intended to prevent profiling of black, brown, and trans women based on how they, of course it was. Of course, because radicalism always comes guised with a smile. What? How dare you arrest women who are loitering, or men dressed as women who are loitering, clearly with intent to prostitute themselves. How dare, because it might result in a disproportionate number of non-white people being arrested. That was the logic behind SB 357. When it was implemented in January 2023, according to the New York Times, the effect was that uniformed officers could no longer apprehend groups of girls in lingerie on Figueroa, hoping to recover minors among them. Now officers needed to be willing to swear they had reason to suspect each girl was underage. But sometimes with the fake eyelashes and the wigs, it was impossible to tell. One girl told voice officers her trafficker had explained things succinctly. We run Figueroa now. Apparently, by the end of 2023, the city attorney was calling Figueroa the kiddie stroll because many of the girls weren't even 13 years old. Now, again, that bill was pushed by a state senator named Scott Wiener, who is currently running for Congress. Wiener, you'll recall, is the person who's also been pretty famously featured in photos dressed in S&M gear in the middle of gay parades and all the rest. The ACLU had backed this pro-prostitution bill. The New York Times basically ignored the fact that Wiener is running for Congress and was also one of the driving forces behind all this, as well as Newsom's involvement. Now, radicalism has consequences. Those consequences can actually be counted in lives lost, in lives wrecked, and all the rest. Meanwhile, and radicalism has a permission structure. Our quasi-friend Michael Knowles was on the Hill speaking with the Senate Judiciary Committee about this yesterday, where he promptly pointed out that all of the talk about right-wing violence, even if that's true, there is right-wing violence, left-wing extremist violence is rewarded by the structure in a way that right-wing violence is not. This is certainly true.
You know, there is appropriate concern, the kind of concern that one would never have on the left because they don't face any threats on college campuses. College campuses are key, though, here, Senator, because when some fringe right-winger does something awful, he's castigated, thrown into prison, as he should be. When a fringe left-winger commits terrorist attacks, sometimes he's given university positions, as happened with the Weather Underground, an organization which blew up part of this very building, and they were rewarded with sinecures at universities.
Again, not wrong. And here was Michael pointing out that, when you try to claim that it's disproportionately on the right, well, I mean, that's true if you just ignore left-wing violence totally.
The Covenant School Massacre in Nashville, in which a trans-identifying shooter murdered Christian school children after outlining her ideological motivations. According to authorities, there was no ideological motive there. Go figure. The Black Lives Matter riots, overtly leftist demonstrations that left dozens of people dead and over $1 billion worth of property damage. Likewise, those fail to show up on registers of left-wing political violence. Even an attack by Antifa that targeted me personally, as well as conservative college students for our political views, appeared in official records and data sets as nothing more than obstructing law enforcement. It turns out the left commits relatively little political violence when you don't count the political violence that the left commits.
I mean, again, totally right about this. The permission structures created by the radical left mean that violence is significantly more likely to take place. And people who refuse to acknowledge that these permission structures exist, well, they are actually fomenting the permission structures in doing so. Meanwhile, one of the most astonishing stories of the day, Bill Gates has now decided to reverse himself on his climate doomerism. So you remember that Bill Gates has spent decades talking about how the global warming catastrophe is going to swamp us all. We'll all be aboard Noah's Ark attempting to escape the tides. Well, now he actually says that climate change will not lead to humanity's demise. Why? It's almost as though all of these sort of expert class, world-changing pseudo-experts, that they didn't know what they were talking about in the first place. And we're not being honest, because the truth is they always knew that the kinds of measures they were proposing to, quote-unquote, stop global warming were not going to be sufficient to what they were suggesting. They always knew this. But here is Bill Gates, who has a new climate message, has now shifted and moved.
The goal here to improve human lives. And shouldn't we, in our awareness of how little generosity there is to help, measure, should we get them a measles vaccine or should we do some climate related activity? And if we stop funding all vaccines and that, saved you 0.1 degree, would that be a smart trade-off? That's the kind of question we have to ask. So I'm a climate activist, but I'm also a child survival activist.
Okay, so what he's saying there is that actually, when it comes to the kind of causes you pursue, there are trade-offs as to human energy. But the most important thing he said is, quote, although climate change will have serious consequences, this is what he wrote in a blog post, particularly for people in the poorest countries, it will not lead to humanity's demise. People will be able to live and thrive in most places on Earth for the foreseeable future. Well, I am shocked. I am shocked. I mean, my goodness, you mean the things that we have been saying on this program for legitimately a decade are true? That actually global warming, while it could be a problem in certain areas, is something that human beings can adapt to? What's amazing is that after spending decades promoting an agenda that basically amounted to the end of capitalism, something that was pushed by the World Economic Forum and its fellow travelers, that after spending decades claiming that we needed a wild revision of how human beings live in order to marginally lower the curve on the climate increase, now Bill Gates is reversing himself because it turns out that's stupid. I mean, here's Bill Gates saying that the Paris climate goals were unrealistic to begin, which of course is true. But those of us who said this were castigated and pilloried by people like Bill Gates.
That was a key milestone because the countries of the world said, hey, this is a mutual problem. The temperature rise, the entire world will experience a temperature rise from the emissions from all these countries. So getting countries to commit was very, very important. The one thing about that accord that turned out not to be realistic was the ambitious goal of staying to 1.5 degrees. We won't be able to do that. Even if you took all the money away from health, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay, so then why was it important? It was not important. It was only not important. It was quite bad. If you set unrealistic goals and suggest that they are in fact realistic, and then you fall short, all you end up doing is, number one, discrediting your own cause, and number two, expending vast amounts of resources in pursuit of a dumbass goal to begin. I mean, Gates is now saying all the things that those of us who are climate realists were saying for a very, very long time. Quote, a few years ago, the government of one low-income country set out to cut emissions by banning synthetic fertilizers. Farmers' yields plummeted. There was much less food available. Prices skyrocketed. The country was hit by a crisis because the government valued reducing emissions above other important things. And the thing that I object to here is not Bill Gates coming around to reality. The thing I object to is that if you mentioned reality 10 years ago, you were considered a quote-unquote climate denier. Even if you were somebody who said, sure, there could be some component of anthropogenic climate change. Sure, human beings could be causing an increase in the climate. That doesn't mean you can end capitalism or stop farming procedures or prevent people from eating meat. That's stupid. If you said that, you were called the climate denier. Now Bill Gates is saying the same exact things. Well, you know what? I'm glad he came around. But let's just be clear on who was being honest and who was lying all along. Okay, meanwhile, the government shutdown continues. Democrats continue to somehow claim that this is all going well for them. I don't see any evidence whatsoever this is going well with them. Apparently, Republican poll numbers have actually increased because of the shutdown, because Democrats look totally out of their mind. Nobody even knows why they're doing this. Here is Schumer trying to deny the reality.
Just now here on the floor, the Republican leader seemed perplexed about what precisely it is that Democrats are pushing for. He knows damn well what Democrats want. It's the very same thing that a vast majority of Americans want, including nearly 60% of MAGA voters. We want lower health care costs now. We want to solve the ACA premium crisis now.
Okay, well, I mean, you could also try to negotiate that after the end of the government shutdown when you fund the continuing function of the government. I honest to God don't understand what Democrats' strategy here is. They've really put themselves in a position where they have no leverage. And not only do they have no leverage, the SNAP benefits are about to cut off in a couple of days here. And when that happens, Democrats will be blamed. They can try to pretend they won't be by going on MSNBC and saying that. I mean, here's Representative Angie Craig trying to blame Speaker Johnson for all of this.
I say if his mouth is moving these days, he's lying. There has never been a lapse in appropriations for SNAP in any other government shutdown. This isn't new territory for this administration. They know. Secretary Brooke Rollins, her own website up until Friday night spelled this out clearly, that contingency fund can be used to fund SNAP benefits in November.
Again, like this is Good luck with this. Truly good luck. John Fetterman, the only sane Democrat apparently left, he says, Democrats probably should not be doing this. This is a very stupid move.
That's just not, I would ever say. I'm not going to describe the lives of millions of Americans as like a euphemism, as leverage. I mean, this isn't a political game. I'm not checking about how it's polling or who's going to blink or whatever.
Again, he is right, and Democrats want to oust him for it. Okay, meanwhile, House Republicans are going after Joe Biden. They're pointing out that Joe Biden actually, a lot of the stuff that he signed was signed by the auto pen. Now, again, the controversy here is not about whether Biden is allowed to use the auto pen. He's allowed to use the auto pen. The question is whether his cognitive decline was so severe that he didn't even know what he had delegated power to sign. That's the actual complaint here. According to CNN, former President Joe Biden experienced such cognitive decline while in office that it remains a serious question as to whether he was aware of the substance of the various pardons and commutations signed in his name via autopen, according to the GOP-controlled House Oversight Committee. They sent that to Pam Bondi. The committee deems void President Biden's executive actions that were signed using the autopen, and the committee determines that action by the Department of Justice is warranted to address the legal consequences of that determination. Now, that was made public alongside a 93-page report outlining their conclusions. They said they had a cover-up of the president's cognitive decline evidenced, and, quote, no record demonstrating President Biden himself made all of the executive decisions that were attributed to him. Now, the Democrats, of course, are very upset about all of this. Speaker Johnson is backing this. He says every executive action with the autopen should be voided, considering that Joe Biden was no longer with us.
Oversight Chairman James Comer released a blockbuster report now on the Biden autopen presidency. And this report includes 47 hours worth of transcripts and testimony revealing that every executive action signed by the autopen without written authorization from President Biden should be voided. This is an unprecedented situation in American politics and government. The actions of President Biden simply were not all his own actions, and there are major implications to that.
I mean, again, this is not wrong. Democrats are still trying to misdirect away from this. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, he is angry at the Representative James Comer, who is pushing this forward through the House Judiciary Committee. He says this is clown activity. Well, no, actually, the clown activity was you guys for like several years maintaining that your president was totally fine, only to take him and dump him overboard the minute that it became clear that he was actually holding down your chances of a 2024 victory.
The so-called chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, continues to behave like a malignant clown. We can't point to a single thing that he's actually done to make life better for the American people.
Well, I mean, I have a question. You are currently holding up the government. You're the one who's promoting the shutdown. It's you and your team. There's a reason why the Democrats are not in particularly good odor with the American public at this point. Well, joining me on the line is Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee. He is the former ambassador to Japan under President Trump as well. Senator Hagerty, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Good morning, Ben. It's good to be with you. Thanks.
So why don't we begin with this kind of insane story about the FBI attempting to access your phone records during the Jack Smith probe. What's the story there for those who haven't been following?
Well, Ben, I think it's beyond attempting to access. I think they actually did, which is an outright disgrace. This is the extraordinarily partisan Jack Smith case in 2023, just after he committed the Mar-a-Lago break-in, if you recall that, the photo op that they leaked out across the media with President Trump's in President Trump's home, where they had all these documents with confidential covers on them that they immediately leaked into the media. He decided it's a good idea to come after 8 sitting senators and a congressman. What he did was he requested our phone records, evidently requested more phone records than what was revealed. But what we found out initially was that myself and 7 of my Senate colleagues, plus a congressman, all had our phone records handed over to Jack Smith and his extraordinary witch hunt. And I think at any point during that period, Ben, Any sentient being who read the news media would know that there was a witch hunt underway, that Jack Smith's effort was wholly partisan, and for my carrier, Verizon in this case, to just turn around and hand over my phone records that not only told, whom I'd called, the duration of the call, but where I was when I made the phone calls. Verizon, more than happy to hand it over. AT&T would not hand over Ted Cruz's records. They actually inquired. AT&T inquired what was the legal foundation, never heard anything back. But you look at Verizon, and I've taken a deeper look into Verizon. What was going on there? Well, I came to find out that the general counsel of Verizon used to be a staffer for one Democrat congressman named Henry Waxman, one of the most partisan players in the House of Representatives. So what you have now is a general counsel who's a Democrat operative, more than happy to conspire and to collaborate with Jack Smith on this witch hunt. There is a speech and debate clause in the United States Constitution, absent treason or felony. Any of my conversations like this are privileged. And the pretext here is just beyond comprehension, that they believe that they could come in and begin to snoop and spy on United States senators. However they did it. And my phone company, again, I'm just shocked that they would have handed my records over, not let me know. I talked with people that are very familiar with how this works here in Washington and in the legal community. They said, had I been a drug dealer, Ben, I would have probably been notified by Verizon. But as a sitting U.S. senator, no notification. Again, an operative working in the general counsel's office, we'll let the air clear here and find out what really went on. But you've got this former Democrat staffer's team that is more than happy to collaborate with Jack Smith against sitting United States senators handing over this sort of sensitive information. The legislative privilege does apply here. That is, again, a constitutional red line that they've crossed, and there's a lot to be answered for right now.
So, Senator, what do you think the corrective ought to be? Assuming that everything that you're saying bears out, that Verizon made a political decision to turn over the records, that Jack Smith's investigation was indeed predicated on political attempts to target members of the Republican Party, high-ranking members, including yourself. What should the corrective activity be here?
Well, I think this should never be allowed to happen again. So I think the punishment needs to be swift and it needs to be severe. We only just found out about this a couple of weeks ago. Verizon has been wholly uncooperative to this point. I've inquired about the information that they received. What sort of documentation did they get from Jack Smith that they relied upon to hand over my records? Again, no answer. Talk to the hand has pretty much been the response. I'm not stopping. I'm going to continue to press. And as this unfolds, Ben, I tend to pursue every legal avenue possible against the carrier Verizon. I regret that I've been a customer for decades of Verizon. The fact is, I didn't even get a call from customer service. I've written to the president. I've written to the general counsel. No response, no reply. You'd think I'd at least get an apology. But again, it's talk to the hand at this point, and that is not going to work well. So making an example out of this situation, I think, is absolutely important, Ben. We cannot have this to happen in the United States of America. If I put it into your realm, you're a great journalist. Could you imagine if the Department of Justice could have an FBI person down the hall every time you talk to a source? Think about what the chilling effect would be. Every time I talk to one of my colleagues about the legislative process, do I need to worry about the FBI investigating me to seek those records? You think about what would happen to you. The Department of Justice has actually put in place explicit rules prohibiting the snooping on news gathering type of activities that I just described for you. I would think that a United States senator in the legislative process would at least be accorded that level of deference. Instead, Jack Smith and his wholly partisan team, comes after United States senators, and our carriers are more than happy to hand over the information.
So obviously the Trump administration is now in charge of the FBI and the DOJ. What's been the response from the FBI under Kash Patel and the DOJ under Pam Bondi on this topic?
Well, thankfully, we do have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino there as soon as they found out, and they only found out by accident, Ben, that this had happened, that these records had been revealed. As soon as they found out, they convened the 8 senators, brought us together and explained what they knew, and they still don't know everything. But this is something that they are digging into to get to the bottom of. This is misbehavior beyond comprehension when you think about the executive branch spying on the legislative branch and the constitutional implications of that. So they have immediately stepped up and said they're going to get to the bottom of it. Pam Bondi could not be more cooperative as well. And a number of my colleagues have reached out to Pam demanding an investigation here to get to the bottom of what Jack Smith did, what his team did. Again, I want to understand from the perspective of the carrier who should have been protecting my interest as a customer, who should have at least had undertaken sufficient diligence to check the United States Constitution before handing my records over. AT&T at least was willing to ask what the legal predicate was. Verizon evidently more than happy to collaborate with Jack Smith. So we've got some real problems here. Again, we're still in the phase of trying to get information. Verizon has been uncooperative. The DOJ and FBI, I'm sure, are digging into this as quickly as they can. But with this type of investigation, they won't be able to disclose perhaps the details that we'd like to know right now. I'm going to keep digging at it from the other side.
Well, Senator Haggerty, on another topic, you were the former ambassador to Japan under President Trump. During his last term, you've been watching President Trump in Japan, meeting the new prime minister of Japan, forming a strategy that looks like it's about forming alliances to help counter the rise of China. What do you make of the president's trip? What do you make of his strategy right now vis-a-vis Japan?
His trip is going extremely well, Ben. I talked with our U.S. ambassador to Japan, George Glass, yesterday. I talked with Kevin Kim, who was on the way to the airport to pick the president up in South Korea as well. He's our charge d'affaires, the acting ambassador in South Korea. They are working their hearts out to make certain that this is the most productive trip the president could possibly have. His time in Japan was absolutely outstanding. If you think about the business deals that were announced, the capital investment that's coming into America, this is something we started under his first term with great success. Japan became, when I was ambassador, the number one investor in America. They're right back in the swing of it again. And again, our ambassador Glass is doing a terrific job of making all of this work. The Japanese want to be our strongest possible ally. The new Prime Minister, Takaichi, she is very focused on strengthening U.S.-Japan alliances. I spoke with her just last week about this. She's determined to make the strongest possible relationship. You may recall that President Trump had a very strong relationship with Prime Minister Abe when I was serving as ambassador. Prime Minister Abe was a good friend of President Trump, a very good friend of mine, and Prime Minister Takaichi is a protege of Prime Minister Abe. In fact, she gave President Trump Prime Minister Abe's favorite putter. A great remembrance for someone that President Trump deeply misses. Prime Minister Abe, as you know, was sadly assassinated in Japan. But she's going to carry the mantle forward. What I see happening in Japan is much deeper cooperation on the economic front. And that forms a foundation, Ben, from an economic standpoint, from an energy cooperation and collaboration standpoint, and from a technology collaboration standpoint. That solid foundation supports then our military cooperation. And we have more United States military stationed in Japan than any other nation in the world. People ask, why do we have such a large presence there? Well, it's pretty simple when you think about it. Japan is situated in a very tough neighborhood, meaning you have North Korea, Russia, and China right at your doorstep. If you think about what's happening in the region, whether it's in the Philippines, it's in the Taiwan Strait, China's aggression has been extraordinary. After the fall of Afghanistan under Joe Biden, what we saw was this sort of behavior manifest itself all over the world, but particularly in the Taiwan Strait. We saw China's aggression step up dramatically after they realized the United States under Joe Biden would not step up and protect its allies. What we've seen happening in the Philippines, even more aggressive. Now we've had both South Korea and Japan working with the Philippines, working with us. Creating a calmer environment there and better military-to-military cooperation. My goal is to see more of that take place. We just had a trilateral dialogue between South Korean, Japanese, and United States business people in Tokyo. That happened about 10 days ago with about 40 CEOs, over 100 attendees, again, looking to deepen our economic cooperation, our technological cooperation. And I think everyone understood at that meeting that our economic security runs parallel to our national security. And the stronger our economic ties, the deeper those ties happen to be, then the stronger we will be as allies together. And I see nothing but a bright future ahead, both for U.S.-Japan relations, but also for U.S. relations with the Republic of Korea. And more cooperation, Ben, will begin to take place between the Republic of Korea and Japan. And as you may know, there's a long history dating back to 1910 when Japan occupied the Korean Peninsula. That took place until 1945 when we liberated the Korean Peninsula. Now you've got North Korea and that tension there. We've got to deal with it. Kim Jong-un actually started launching again ahead of the president's trip to Asia. President Trump is focused on that relationship as well. But I'm very optimistic that we're going to see new cooperation from an economic standpoint, a military standpoint, and again, an opportunity to see things settle down. President Trump's going to meet with President Xi here in South Korea. That's a new breakthrough opportunity. I'm optimistic there as well. A lot of good things are happening.
But Senator Bill Hagerty from Tennessee. Senator, thanks so much for your time. We'll keep an eye on that unfolding case regarding the FBI and Verizon surveilling you. Really appreciate the time.
Certainly, Ben. Thank you for having me today.
Alrighty, folks, coming up, we're going to jump into the question of President Trump trying to get a settlement out of the DOJ for all of their malfeasance during the last several years going after him. We'll talk about that, the Republican response to it. Plus, the Senate actually bucking President Trump on trade. Remember, in order to watch, you have to be a member. If you're not a member, become a member, use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us. Alrighty, folks, today is Election Day in New York City. Will Mamdani do it? Will New Yorkers do it? Will you? By the way, I'll be on CNN's live stream tonight talking about it as it all unfolds with Isabel Brown, with Anna Kasparian, with a wide variety of others, Charlemagne the God. Should be interesting, so tune into that as well. First, we have less than 2,000 Daily Wire lifetime memberships remaining. Yes, these are selling like hotcakes. Turns out, having all access benefits for life with no renewals is something everyone wants. So here are your options. You could buy one while they're still available, or you could win mine. Yes, I have one, as like one of the co-founders of the company. I have my very own lifetime membership to give away. I made it extremely easy to enter. Download that free Daily Wire Plus app in the App Store. Open it, tap follow under my picture. That's it. You're now entered. And who knows? I could be calling you to give you my personal lifetime membership. But before any of that happens, you need to download that Daily Wire Plus app and go check out that app and follow me to enter to win. Alrighty, folks, it's Election Day in New York City. And the question on everyone's mind, will Zohran Mamdani, the pro-jihadist, pro-Marxist candidate for mayor of New York, be elected mayor of the world's financial capital? And one of the questions that I sort of have to ask here is, if you're a Curtis Sliwa voter, who are you and why? Truly, because what is the point of your vote? Okay, we get it. You don't like Cuomo and you don't like Mamdani either. Okay, welcome to planet Earth where most people don't like either Cuomo or Mamdani. But I'm just wondering, what do you get by voting for Curtis Sliwa at this point? Do you want one of those hats? Like what precisely is the draw to vote for Curtis Sliwa? Curtis is fine, don't get me wrong. And if you're in a rational city, maybe he might have an outside shot at being mayor of New York, but he doesn't. So what are you doing? If you take your vote and you put it in the Sliwa box, that is a vote effectively for Zohran Mamdani, period, end of story. However, this brand new Atlas Intel survey released on Monday shows Zohran Mamdani up 43.9% to 39.4% for Andrew Cuomo. And in fact, the survey finds that Andrew Cuomo would beat Mamdani 49.7% to 44.1% in a hypothetical head-to-head matchup. In that poll, by the way, Sliwa is claiming 15.5% support. Guys, no, don't do this. Don't do it. It is not worth whatever points you think you are scoring by not voting for Andrew Cuomo. Listen, I don't like Andrew Cuomo either. I think Andrew Cuomo is a terrible governor of New York. I don't understand for the life of me why the mayoralty of New York came down to the guy who killed all the old people and grabbed ass and ran out of old people and an outright third worlder. I don't understand. When I say third worlder, I mean like as a philosophy. Like Zohran Mamdani is a third worldist, meaning he believes that all the poor places on earth are the fault of Western civilization. He believes that the only reason that there are failing parts of planet Earth is because of colonialism and because of Western imperialism and capitalism and all that kind of nonsense. So those are your two choices, but voting for Curtis Sliwa ain't going to fix that. By the way, you know who has said this quite correctly? The President of the United States. He put out a statement on Truth Social last night, quote, "If communist candidate Zohran Mamdani wins the election for mayor of New York City, it is highly unlikely I will be contributing federal funds, other than the very minimum as required, to my beloved first home, because of the fact that, as a communist, this once great city has zero chance of success or even survival. It can only get worse with a communist at the helm, and I don't want to send as president good money after bad. It is my obligation to run the nation, and it is my strong conviction that New York City will be a complete and total economic and social disaster should Mamdani win. His principles have been tested for over 1,000 years, and never once have they been successful." I mean, that's true. I would much rather see a Democrat who has had a record of success win than a communist with no experience and a record of complete and total failure. He was nothing as an assemblyman, ranked at the bottom of his class, and as mayor of potentially, again, the greatest city in the world, he has no chance to bring it back to its former glory. We must also remember this: a vote for Curtis Sliwa, who looks much better without the beret, is a vote for Mamdani. You gotta love the asides from President Trump. They are very amusing. Whether you personally like Andrew Cuomo or not, you really have no choice. You must vote for him and hope he does a fantastic job. He is capable of it. Mamdani is not. The President of the United States hits the nail on the head. And in fact, chaos is very likely to reign in New York City if indeed Zohran Mamdani wins. According to the New York Post, Brand new poll from Jail Partners. About 9% of New Yorkers say they will definitely leave the city entirely if Mamdani is elected the 111th mayor. That's like 765,000 people. Another 25% of New Yorkers, about 2.12 million, said they would consider packing up and leaving. And among high earners, 7% of those making over $250,000 a year said they would definitely flee. Now again, maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's an overstatement, but a lot of people are going to leave. If you're mobile, do you want to stick around while this guy wrecks the city, while he destroys the city? That, of course, is the big question. Now, one of the things that has happened with Zoran Mamdani over the course of his candidacy, there's been an attempt to remake and remold Zoran Mamdani. That, all those videos, those old videos of him being super radical, that's not the new smiley Zoran Mamdani. That's the old negative Nelly Zoran Mamdani. The one who's so relentlessly pessimistic about America. The new smiley Zoran Mamdani is totally, totally different. Now, here's the thing. Zoran Mamdani's an actor. I mean, really, the dude acts a lot. Like, he is an actor. I don't even think he's a very good actor. I think he slaps on that smarmy grin, and it has about as much authenticity as a $3 bill. Which, by the way, I'm sure he will be attempting to create in lieu of actual tax revenue. Zoran Mamdani is the kind of person who thought he was going to be a rap star after enjoying all the fruits of the best American education has to offer and turned himself into this. This is who Zoran Mamdani is, once and forever. Oh, no.
Go ahead, make a rap for your nanny. It's a rap. Get the guap, spin the rack on your nanny. Come through.
That's what you want, New York? That right there? That's what you're into? Mamdani's a fake. I mean, here is some video of Mamdani code switching, which again, I find untoward, whomever you are.
I actually created a playlist for Mira, who also happens to be my mother. Nepotism and hard work goes a long way.
We need our internet because we have all of our kids staying at home doing remote learning. And if you don't have internet, you can't be taught, you can't learn.
I was supposed to assist the music supervisor, but I ended up picking all the songs for the film.
City Hall is engulfed in corruption. A mayor could change this, and that's why I'm running.
Apparently, you are a rapper too.
I happen to be a rapper. I am a rapper proper.
This is the one you want. And it's all the way down to his ridiculously fake campaign. I mean, truly fake. I'll admit the guy has some TikTok skills. It turns out that you can take even the biggest dud in the pile and for 30 seconds on TikTok make him look okay. This is why when you put Zoran Mamdani in debate, he completely falls apart. I mean, Zoran Mamdani is the kind of guy who eats a burrito with a fork and a knife, but eats rice with his hands, supposedly. Now, I don't know which one of those you believe. Do you think that Zoran Mamdani, like in his normal life, eats rice with his hands? Which, okay, I don't have to pretend that I think all cultural hallmarks are equivalently clean. I don't think eating rice with your hands is a good policy. Okay, if your culture eats rice with your hands, I suppose you can. It's gross to me. There's no way about it. Like I'm sorry. Like I don't think that all things that all cultures do are equally anti-germ. But I also don't believe he does this. I don't think Zoran Mamdani is sitting at home with his wife and there's a pot of rice and he just takes his hand and he scoops it in and just starts shoving it in his face. I don't think that... This is a dude who eats a burrito with a fork and a knife. Give me a break. He literally takes a dish that is wrapped in a wrap so that you can use your hands and he eats that with a fork and a knife. But when it comes to rice, which is mush, he shoves his... Give me... What a fake he is. Truly, what a phony. Oh, come on.
The third holy grail of taboos in American politics, you have socialism, you have Islam, and then you have Palestine. And you are really going for the trifecta.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Tell me, why is Palestine a part of your politics?
When you grow up as someone, especially in the third world, you have a very different understanding of the Palestinian struggle.
I'm not saying it, he's saying it. He's shoving rice in his mouth with his hands while talking about the Palestinian struggle as a third worldist. Okay, that's who Zoran Mamdani is. That's who he is. Okay? Or at least that's who he's pretending ideologically. He's a third worldist. But in terms of his actual mannerisms, He is an upper-class white kid. Okay, that's the whole thing is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And New Yorkers, the fact that so many of you have been taken in by this horse shit is unbelievable to me. It's truly incredible. How gullible are you people? And then we're supposed to believe that on some fundamental level, you also hear this a lot, Zohran Mamdani has on some fundamental level changed. No, he has not whatsoever. The only thing that Zohran Mamdani has changed is his affect. It's literally the only thing that he changed. Alrighty, folks, we'll get to more on Zohran Mamdani, this fake, this fraud, but a very genuine pro-Marxist and pro-jihadist candidate, obviously. First, we all know that costs have been all over the place. Groceries, gas, subscriptions, you name it. So it's not a surprise we tend to assume that everything is more expensive than it actually is. Case in point, 72% of Americans overestimate what life insurance costs. Turns out it might be more affordable than you think. Policy Genius makes finding and buying life insurance fast, easy, and surprisingly affordable. So if something happens to you, your loved ones do have that financial safety net. With Policy Genius, real users have gotten 20-year, $2 million policies for just $53 a month. Looking for life insurance can feel absolutely overwhelming. Policy Genius makes it surprisingly straightforward. They let you compare quotes from top insurers in just a few clicks, so you can find coverage that actually fits your need and your budget. What sets them apart? They have a team of licensed agents who will walk you through everything step by step. They'll answer your questions, handle the paperwork, advocate for you throughout that process. They lay out all your options clearly, cleanly, coverage amounts, prices, terms right in front of you. No guesswork, just clarity. And since life insurance is really, really, really important, it helps the Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace with thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from people who found exactly what they needed. We have life insurance. You need life insurance. It's just an important, responsible thing to have. Secure your family's future with Policy Genius. Head on over to policygenius.com/Shapiro to compare life insurance quotes from top companies. See how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Shapiro. Also, when I started Daily Wire, it felt like we had to figure out everything with almost no help. Editorial guidelines, studio setup, production schedule, branding, like the whole thing. Overwhelming. New decisions were needed daily. Well, finding that one tool that simplifies everything when you start a business becomes a game changer and a lifesaver for millions of businesses. That tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of literally all e-commerce in the United States. We use it for our own Daily Wire shop to make sure things are running smoothly and efficiently so you can get the goods. Now, you might be asking, what if I can't design a website or I'm worried people haven't heard of my brand? Not a problem. Shopify's got you covered from the start with beautiful, ready-to-go templates that match your brand style and help you find your customers through easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. And if you need a hand with everyday tasks, their AI tools created specifically for commerce can help enhance product images, write descriptions, and more. Plus, their award-winning customer support is available 24/7 to share advice if you ever get stuck. Turn those dreams into and give them the best shot at success with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Shapiro. Go to shopify.com/Shapiro. That's shopify.com/Shapiro. Here, for example, is old Zohran Mamdani a few years ago telling a story about 9/11 and Islamophobia.
I think of on 9/11 when my teacher pulled me out of class, a classmate of mine and myself, and told us that we may get bullied because of what had just happened. And we didn't understand what had happened. And in fact, we were very lucky to have a teacher as kind and caring as that because most Muslim students did not have that. And yet, what I really remember from that interaction was the understanding that now I was distinct. There was something about me that was different from my classmates. And it's a lesson that I was made to learn again and again, because a few years later when I returned to New York City after a trip with my family abroad, I was taken aside at JFK and put in a double-mirrored room with immigration agents and asked, if I had just come from attending a terrorist training camp, and if I had intentions on attacking this country, and what my thoughts were on the government. And I was 15 years old, and I was terrified.
The real victim of 9/11 was Zohran Mamdani, but don't worry, he's changed. Because a few years passed and he grew up and he realized that the real victims of 9/11, the real victims, the people who really were people like his aunt, who somebody supposedly gave a weird eye to on the subway one time.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City.
So much emotion. It's not fake at all. So much emotion.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt.
She's not his aunt. Wow, he has to stop.
Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Wow. I mean, the emotions, could you feel it? It's like the end of Terms of Endearment right there. And my goodness. I haven't seen that sort of acting since I don't even know when, like Chris Farley and Tommy Boy or something. I mean, that's some acting right there. By the way, it wasn't his aunt. It was his father's cousin, which, as we all know, is what you call your aunt. Also, his aunt, his actual aunt, lived in Tanzania at the time and didn't wear a hijab. His unspecified father's cousin, we don't know anything about her, even her name. So basically, she might live in Canada like his girlfriend or something.
I was at the press conference yesterday. They said, can you tell us who your aunt is, who you were referring to? I said, yes, this is my aunt. This is my Zera Fui. This is my father's cousin, and this was her story.
So how can you convince New Yorkers if that is the type of person that you are, in other words, that you don't tell the truth?
Well, it's not a lie. My father's cousin is my aunt. That's how I referred to her growing up my whole life, Zera Fui.
I mean, it is technically a lie. I mean, like, a little bit. But don't worry, he's totally honest. And he's honest that he shifted about radical Islam also. I mean, like old Zohar Mamdani, for example, rapped about the Holy Land Five. Those would be people who went to jail because they were fronting for a terrorist group. The Holy Land Foundation was a front group for Hamas. It was a fundraising group for Hamas. And here is old Zohar Mamdani, you know, back in his rapping days when he wasn't wearing a shirt but was wearing an apron in a food truck. Which, again, I don't know what it is about Zohar Mamdani and his food habits. Guys, like, please, if you're going to be, like, cooking at a food truck, please wear a shirt. It's gross. And also eat rice with, like, a fork or a spoon. Like, please. That's all I ask of you. But here he was, back in his rapping days, rapping about the Holy Land Five. It's also very bad rap. Okay, but also, old Zohar Mamdani was the kind of person who screamed about genocide while wearing keffiyeh. And when I say old Zohar Mamdani, I mean, like, not all that old. I mean, like, you know, a couple of years ago. Because here's the thing about Zohar Mamdani, he's very, very young. So we're not talking about 20 years ago he did a bad thing. We're talking about, like, 5 minutes ago he did a bad thing. And now he's trying to claim that he is moderated in some way. I don't believe you, sir.
It has been 4 months of protesting a genocide. It has become harder and harder to wake up every morning and see more and more Palestinians massacred with our tax dollars.
Okay, and if that wasn't enough for you, he also defended the Columbia University so-called protesters, many of whom are trespassing or committing acts of violence.
I think these students have actually forced many of us to reckon with what's happening there, because for too many Americans, this has been something that is actually getting out of view. An example is that when students renamed the hall in Columbia from Hamilton Hall to Hind Hall, they were honoring a 6-year-old Palestinian girl who was killed in her car watching as her parents had been killed by the Israeli military prior. And for so many Americans, that was a name that they hadn't heard until these students made it one.
Well, this heroic man. Well, but he's changed. That's when he was a state representative. You know, he's like old Zohar Mamdani would say that, for example, the New York City Police Department is basically the IDF, that they're the same. That's the old Zohar Mamdani.
We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF. We're in a country where those connections abound, especially in New York City. You have so many opportunities to make clear the ways in which that struggle over there is tied to capital's interest over here.
So, like, the old Zohar Mamdani was like an anti-Semite, right, who would just randomly link the policies of the NYPD to the IDF somehow and then blame the Jews for NYPD policy. The new Zohar Mamdani, by contrast, is also a radical anti-Semite who, you know, during this campaign literally said that globalize the Intifada, which is a call for violence. Intifada is a violent uprising. And to globalize it would be to extend, you know, that uprising globally. That's literally what it means. He says it actually just means equality and struggle, as one would if one, you know, was not fond of Jews.
I know people for whom those things mean very different things. And to me, ultimately, what I hear in so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights in standing up for Palestinian human rights. And I think what's difficult also is that the very word has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, because it's a word that means struggle.
Sure.
And as a Muslim man who grew up post 9/11, I'm all too familiar in the way in which Arabic words can be twisted, can be distorted, can be used to justify any kind of meaning.
He was the real victim. Now he's going to tell us jihad is actually just a peaceful inner quest, which is very exciting. In case you weren't really clear on this, also, Zohran Mamdani refuses to say that Hamas should disarm. So just in case you were unclear on whether he is warm toward terrorism, the answer is yes. He most definitely is.
So what is your response to what Hamas is doing now?
I think those are bodies and remains that should absolutely be returned. And I think that I have no issue with critiquing Hamas or the Israeli government because my critiques all come from a place of universal human rights. And my focus, however, is right here in New York City and transforming the most expensive city in America into one that's affordable for each and every New Yorker.
But, okay, I want to get to that, absolutely. But do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety and the fact that anything has to abide by international law. And that applies to Hamas, that applies to the Israeli military, applies to anyone you could ask me about.
Oh, wow. He has no opinions. I mean, he shockingly has no opinions, but he found an opinion about like arresting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that he has very strong opinions about. Getting the terrorist group to disarm, he has no opinions about it. It's very far away, you see. And if you believe that, then also he certainly eats rice with his hands on like a daily basis. Here he was in that same interview saying the sitting Prime Minister of Israel should be arrested, and also he has no opinions about whether Hamas should disarm.
You have said that you would arrest Netanyahu if he came to the United States. You've been very outspoken in your criticism of him. Do you stand by that? You would arrest him if he came here, if you were mayor?
I've said that this is a city that believes in international law, and this is a city that wants to uplift and uphold those beliefs. The Prime Minister...
The United States doesn't stand by the International Criminal Court.
It hasn't signed the treaty for the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court, however, has issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu.
But what grounds in the United States could you arrest him on?
As it has for Vladimir Putin. I've said that I believe that we should uphold arrest warrants by the International Criminal Court, and that we should do so only in abiding with all of the laws in front of us. I'm not going to make a new law to ensure that we can actually do this.
Do you think that Commissioner Tisch would allow you to arrest Netanyahu in New York City?
I've appreciated Commissioner Tisch's leadership of the NYPD, and I think that she's done a good job at lowering crime across this city.
We will get to his feelings about the police in a moment, but suffice it to say, I don't believe him there either. So just to get the record straight, we're supposed to believe he underwent an evolution in the course of the last 2.7 milliseconds from, thinking the real victims of 9/11 were family members of his, Muslims who people treated poorly, supposedly, to now he's probably fine on that issue. Or he used to support radical Islamic jihadism, but now he only kind of does support radical Islamic jihadism. Already coming up, Zohran Mamdani, he used to be really anti-police, but now he loves the Well, that's not true either. He really still doesn't really like the police. First, a recent Danish study found something deeply concerning. Just 1 year after an abortion, women were 50% more likely to need psychiatric treatment and 87% more likely to experience personality or behavioral disorders. These aren't just stats. They represent real women facing real struggles. This is why Preborn takes a different approach. When a woman walks through their doors, uncertain and afraid, she finds something she may not have expected. Genuine support. Through an ultrasound, she meets her baby for the first time, and suddenly what felt like an impossible situation begins to look different. But Preborn doesn't stop there. When a woman chooses life, they walk alongside her for up to 2 years, providing practical help like maternity clothes and diapers, as well as ongoing counseling and emotional support. It's care for the whole human being, addressing her physical needs, her mental health, and her future. As you think about your year-end giving, consider the greatest investment you could ever make, the gift of life. Dial pound 250, say keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby, or visit preborn.com/Ben. All gifts are tax deductible. Preborn is a 5-star rated charity. That's preborn.com/Ben to make a difference for generations to come. Also, every business is asking the same question right about now. How do we make AI work for us? The possibilities are endless and guessing is really risky, but sitting on the sidelines is not an option because one thing is almost certain, your competitors are already making their move. No more waiting. With NetSuite by Oracle, you can put AI to work for you today. NetSuite stands as the #1 AI cloud ERP, earning the trust of over 43,000 businesses worldwide by delivering what modern companies need most. That unified platform that brings together financials, inventory, commerce, HR, and CRM into a single source of truth. This connected data foundation is what sets NetSuite's AI apart. Instead of making educated guesses, it actually knows your business, which enables it to intelligently automate routine tasks, deliver actionable insights, and help you cut those costs while making fast, confident decisions powered by AI. Unlike bolt-on tools that sit awkwardly alongside your existing systems, NetSuite's AI is built directly into the platform that runs your business, creating a seamless experience that scales with you. And the result is an ERP system that doesn't just store your data, but actively works with it, learning from your operations to continuously improve efficiency and uncover opportunities you might otherwise miss. Whether your company generates millions or hundreds of millions in revenue, NetSuite gives you integrated intelligence you need to stay ahead of the competition and adapt quickly to market changes. Right now, get our free business guide, Demystifying AI, at netsuite.com/Shapiro. The guide is free to you at netsuite.com/Shapiro. That's netsuite.com/Shapiro. Old Mamdani really hated the cops, really hated the cops. And by the way, again, this is old Mamdani from 2 years ago saying that he was for defunding the police.
And we see so many situations where encounters with police, the police arrive and all of a sudden the tension rises even astronomically to what it was prior. Right. And I think that we need to say and ask ourselves, look at how policing is done in the suburbs, in wealthier, whiter America. When people make mistakes, the answer is not to throw them in jail. No. The answer is not to, put them in a cage and throw away the key. The answer is to try and find a non-carceral solution.
Absolutely.
Community service, something where, they learn from their mistakes. There's a sense of accountability and growth, all these kinds of things, which for many people in this country, especially black people, are not offered the same opportunity.
Are you for defunding the police? Are you for serious reform that people can see on the ground?
I am in favor of defunding the police.
So that was not all that long ago. Now he says that, he's going to apologize to the NYPD. So Newsarm Mamdani apologizes to the NYPD. Here he is now.
You said in the past, I almost don't need to go through it, it's been said many times, but that you called the police force racist, said they were a major threat to public safety, called them wicked and corrupt. And now the report that you apologized to 24 members of the NYPD. What did you say to them?
I apologized for the language that I used, and I spoke to them about the fact that I want to work with them to deliver public safety. Because what we're seeing in the city right now is we're asking officers to do nearly everything we can think of. We used to ask officers to focus on serious crimes. Now we're asking them to focus also on the mental health crisis, to focus also on homelessness. In 1 year alone, the NYPD receives 200,000 mental health calls.
Police officers that I spoke to, they don't want a behind closed doors apology. They want a broad public apology for the things that you suggested about them. Will you do that right now?
Absolutely. I'll apologize to police officers right here, because this is the apology that I've been sharing with many rank and file officers. And I apologize because of the fact that I'm looking to work with these officers, and I know that these officers, these men and women who serve in the NYPD, they put their lives on the line every single day.
I totally believe him. I totally believe him now that he apologized, that he loves the NYPD now. Now he loves them. Now, to be fair, he also does want to decriminalize prostitution because he's afraid that it's going to hurt black and brown ladies, presumably because the police are, a bunch of racists.
And to follow the advice of district attorneys that we have here in New York City, the current Manhattan DA, the former Manhattan DA, the current Brooklyn DA, the former Manhattan DA having said that prosecuting women for prostitution is something that actually leads to less safety. And what we need to do is provide an economy
Mr. Mamdani,
of opportunity.
Just a quick clarification. So no legalization, how about decriminalization?
I do not think that we should be prosecuting women who are struggling, who are currently being thrown in jail, and then being offered job opportunities. I think we should be actually providing those kinds of opportunities at the first point of interaction.
Yes, we should decriminalize. Also, we should abolish the gang database, because who knows what those wonderful cops that he loves so much might do with the gang database.
Let me ask you about a bunch of different policies just to kind of get your thinking out there. If city council legislation to abolish the NYPD gang database were to pass, would you support and sign that?
I have supported that proposal. It's one that I've supported because of the vast dragnet has meant the inclusion of New Yorkers on the basis of whether they go out late, photos they put on social media, so much of the facts of life of being a young New Yorker. And yet it then becomes a mark of suspicion. And it is a concern of mine that we do not live up to, of all people, Eric Adams's words in 2021, who said that New Yorkers need not choose between safety and justice. Mm-hmm. There's no question that we have to take gangs extremely seriously. And yet I find that a database that includes New Yorkers on such bases is one that doesn't actually do exactly that.
So I'm just wondering, like, does he still raise your hand in New York if you believe that Zohran Mamdani is going to bring down the crime rates? Anyone? Bueller. But don't worry, he's totally not going to wreck the economy. I mean, sure, the old Zohran Mamdani said that he was fighting for socialism, like to the Democratic Socialists of America. I mean, that is the thing he said.
Where we have to make it very clear that people cannot eat words. People need to have actual food. People need to have actual houses to live in. People need to have actual schools that they can go to. And I think it's so critical that this journey into understanding the way in which we should relate to power, this journey in understanding that it is socialism that we are fighting for, is a journey that should begin as soon as possible for every single person in this country and in this world.
So, I mean, that was old Zohran. But new Zohran, well, I mean, to be fair, he also thinks capitalism is bad.
Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on, is dignity and taking on income inequality. And for too long, politicians have pretended that we're spectators to that crisis of affordability. We're actually actors, and we have the choice to exacerbate it, like Mayor Adams has done, or to respond to it and resolve it, like I'm planning to do.
So, yeah. I mean, guys, that's what you want to do? Him? Really? Okay, New Yorkers. So, final closing message on Zohran Mamdani. If you're voting for Curtis Lewa, do not do this stupid thing. What are you doing? Vote for Andrew Cuomo. Yes, I don't like Andrew Cuomo either. Yes, I think Andrew Cuomo's a schmuck. But you know who's way more dangerous than schmuck Andrew Cuomo? Zohran Mamdani. What are you doing? Do not do this, folks. Please do not. Listen. You're going to get what you ask for. Good and hard. That's the theory of democracy. But for your own sake, because I have many friends who live in New York City, because I love New York City in many ways. I just have a love-hate relationship with New York City, to be fair. Like, don't do this. Really. Also, America's kind of tied to the future, the financial center of planet Earth. So, please, I'm asking you, do not do this thing. Alrighty, meanwhile, Democrats even are uncomfortable with all of this. Hakeem Jeffries, for example, was asked yesterday whether the future of the Democratic Party was Zohran Mamdani. And even Hakeem Jeffries was like, I don't know if I want to say that.
What I indicated is that if we truly believe, as many of us do, that Donald Trump represents an existential threat to everything, that in order for us to get from where we are to where we need to go and end the national nightmare, then House Democrats are going to have to be successful in taking back control of the House of Representatives.
What about the slow embrace of Mamdani?
I issued a statement on the eve of early voting, and the statement speaks for itself.
Well, again, I think that he is uncomfortable. But here's the thing, folks. If you let the radicals control your party, you got a problem on your hands. Alrighty, folks, coming up, there are two other big races happening today, one in Virginia, one in New Jersey. We'll get to that in a moment. First, let's be honest. Traditional phone systems weren't built for how businesses actually work today. When you miss a call, you're not just missing a conversation, you're losing business. Quo, formerly OpenPhone, is the modern alternative, designed to help you work smarter, build stronger relationships, and never miss an opportunity. If you're tired of juggling multiple phones or being chained to a landline, Quo is exactly what your business needs. As the #1 business phone system, Quo streamlines all your customer communications through a simple app on your phone or computer, meaning you can literally run your business from anywhere. What's really smart about it is how your entire team can share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like they're working from a shared inbox, which keeps response times lightning fast and customers genuinely happy. But here's where it gets really interesting. Quo's built-in AI does all the heavy lifting by automatically logging calls, creating summaries, even automating your next steps. Their AI agent can actually answer calls, qualify leads, and route customers to the right team member, so you never have to worry about leaving customers hanging even after hours. Whether you're flying solo or leading a growing team, Quo keeps everyone connected while helping you deliver those standout customer experiences that make all the difference. It's no wonder over 90,000 businesses are already using it. Quo is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/Ben. That's QUO.com/Ben. You can even keep your existing number for free. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Also, did you know that when your metabolism is working correctly, you feel the benefits in pretty much every aspect of your life? I found a valuable tool that gives me insight to create a healthy metabolism for my body. It's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It measures your metabolism through your breath. It lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs, giving you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and stress management, which you could probably all use these days. All I have to do is breathe into my Lumen first thing in the morning. I know exactly what's going on with my metabolism, and then Lumen gives me a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on my actual measurements. Now, I use Lumen especially when I am on the road to determine, how my body is processing things. I can't exercise as much. I want to be more careful about how I eat. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns food into fuel. Optimal metabolic health means easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep. Lumen provides crucial insights and helpful guidance to improve your metabolic health, but it requires effort and lifestyle changes to actually see results. Winter is the perfect season to build strength from within. Stay energized, stay resilient, take charge of your metabolism. Go to lumen.me/Shapiro to get an additional 10% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Shapiro for 10% off on top of any offers or sales running on their website. Okay, meanwhile, there are two other major races happening today. Race number one is the New Jersey gubernatorial race, and that race is shockingly close. That is a race between Republican Jack Ciattarelli and Democrat Mickey Sherrill. According to ABC News Washington bureau chief Rick Klein, this is by all accounts the tightest race happening this election day. The gubernatorial race is likely to be a nail-biter, which is pretty incredible because remember, New Jersey is deep blue. It is not like moderate blue. It is a deep, deep blue state. The polling in the New Jersey gubernatorial race is shockingly tight. According to USA Today, it is a near dead heat. A near dead heat. It's going to come down to turnout. Atlas Intel says that essentially there's like a slight advantage at this point for Mickey Sherrill. The worst case scenario for the Democratic Party in some ways, actually, believe it or not, is that Zoran Mamdani wins in New York City and Mickey Sherrill loses in New Jersey and Abigail Spanberger loses in Virginia. If that were to happen, the Democrats are going to have a real tough time holding off the progressive left because a lot of Democrats are going to take away the idea that somehow the victorious message is the insane pro-jihadi, pro-Marxist viewpoint of Zoran Mamdani and that moderate Democrats will lose even in blue states like Virginia, like New Jersey. Ciattarelli is a traditional Republican. According to Politico, he wants to slash 30% of state spending, or about $17 billion of the state's $58.7 billion budget. He says he would essentially eliminate the so-called millionaires tax, lower business taxes, and keep the state's sales tax steady. He also wants to increase spending in certain areas like public employee pensions and state aid for special education. That's essentially a sort of Reaganomics approach, that if you lower the tax rate, you'll end up increasing economic growth, which means that your tax receipts will actually go up. Ciattarelli recently said, if we are very good at streamlining the state government, downsizing it, we can afford these tax cuts. But mark my words, if these reforms work to grow our economy, we're going to have more tax revenue than we know what to do with. It'll be fascinating to see if New Jerseyans decide that they want Ciattarelli. Ciattarelli came very, very close to beating Governor Phil Murphy in the last gubernatorial race. He's ran an excellent race. This time, if you are listening to the sound of my voice in New Jersey, Jack Ciattarelli is the pick. Meanwhile, in Virginia, the Virginia gubernatorial election, this appears to be the least close of the races at this point. According to the latest polling, Abigail Spanberger, who's considered a sort of what would now be called the blue dog Democrat, she isn't really, she's just a more moderate Democrat than sort of the progressive wild-eyed crew. She's leading anywhere between 10 and 7 points, according to a slew of polls. Now, speaking of the Virginia and New Jersey races, Kalshi, one of our sponsors, the prediction market, they say that Mickey Sherrill has above an 80% chance of winning the New Jersey governorships. And meanwhile, Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, a near lock. She's almost at 100% in that Virginia market over on Kalshi. Meanwhile, Winsome Earl Sears, who's the current lieutenant governor, is stuck between 40 and 45% in all of the polls. If that race remains close, there's a good shot that the Democrats' Attorney General nominee, Jay Jones, is going to lose. He, of course, is the guy who said he wanted to kill the Speaker of the House of Delegates in Virginia and criticized that person's children as little fascists. If somehow Spanberger wins by a very, very broad margin in Virginia, she might carry Jones over the line. If not, Jones could lose. But the bottom line is this. The Democratic Party is about to face a serious reckoning today. It'll be fascinating to see how it all plays out. Meanwhile, Democrats on the national level remain extremely confused about what to do next. They seem to think that if they just keep upping the language against President Trump, somehow this will redound to their benefit. So, for example, the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries yesterday accused President Trump and the GOP of running what he called a pedo protection program. They're still doing this Jeffrey Epstein thing.
The fact that Republicans have canceled votes now for 6 consecutive weeks, missing in action, taxpayer-funded vacation, running the pedophile protection program while doing nothing to make life better for the American people.
Okay, I'm really like you're still on Epstein. The Democrats, they think they're going to win because they think that Donald Trump is covering up for Jeffrey Epstein. That's your play. Maybe if you just drag Nancy Pelosi out of the crypt to go nuclear on President Trump. She, by the way, announced yesterday that she would not be seeking her 127th term in Congress. So I assume that means that someone similarly crazily left will be taking over her seat. But, in one of her final interviews here, she went nuclear on President Trump.
Just a vile creature. The worst thing on the face of the earth. But anyway.
You think he's the worst thing on the face of the earth?
I do, yeah. I do.
Why is that?
Because he's the President of the United States and he does not honor the Constitution of the United States. In fact, he's turned the Supreme Court into a rogue court. He's abolished the House of Representatives. He's chilled the press. He's scared people who are in our country legally.
Okay, again, if this is the best you can do, Trump is going to keep winning. He is. Meanwhile, speaking of President Trump victories, I love this. President Trump has been targeting the government of Nigeria for its willingness to tolerate Islamist terrorist groups attacking and murdering Christians by the thousands in Nigeria. There's been an ongoing actual human rights crisis targeting Christians in Nigeria. And President Trump put out a statement saying that if the Nigerian government continues to look the other way as Christians are slaughtered, then the United States might have to intervene to do something about it. Now, again, I trust that President Trump is not, in fact, a radical interventionist who wants to put hundreds of thousands of American troops on the ground in Nigeria or anything like that. But if a little bit of pressure can be put to the Nigerian government, or if a minimum of necessary force can be used in Nigeria in order to protect Christians in Nigeria, that seems to me well worthwhile. Here was President Trump yesterday.
They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria. And they have other countries very bad also. You know that part of the world very bad. They're killing the Christians and killing them in very large numbers. We're not going to allow that to happen.
Now, the truth is that in Nigeria, the violence is not only Christians. There's tremendous violence in Nigeria. The problem in Nigeria, of course, has been going on for legitimately decades at this point. According to CNN, both Christians and Muslims have been victims of attacks by radical Muslims in Nigeria. Over the weekend, there was a mass slaughter of Christians by Islamist insurgents, according to President Trump. The Nigerian government rejects claims it is not doing enough to protect Christians from violence. The Nigerian presidential spokesperson, Bayo Ananuga, told CNN, "We are shocked that President Trump is mulling an invasion of our country." President Trump also threatened to stop all U.S. aid to Nigeria if its government fails to take steps to stop the killing of Christians. He warned the proposed intervention would be fast and vicious, aimed at eliminating the Islamist terrorists he said were responsible for these atrocities. Nigeria is split about half and half between Christians and Muslims. The northern region is predominantly Muslim. The southern region is largely Christian. Boko Haram, which is a radical Islamist group that you will remember back from the Obama days for kidnapping a wide bevy of schoolgirls. And you remember the entire Obama administration holding up dumb signs saying, "Bring back our girls," that did not achieve the bringing back of the girls. Well, in 2012, they issued an ultimatum ordering Christians in the northern region to leave while calling on Muslims in the south to come back north. There is certainly systematic killing of Christians in the north, for sure. including mass slaughter. And the Nigerian government certainly has not been doing enough to stop it. So good for President Trump. Trump on Saturday doubled down on his allegations that the government is failing to rein in the persecution of Christians. He put on Truth Social a statement, quote, "If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country guns a-blazing to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities." That threat came after President Trump designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern. That is a formal U.S. declaration of countries it says are failing to act over religious freedom violations. Nigeria continues to deny that Christians are being persecuted. With that said, the government is certainly not doing enough to protect Christians in the northern regions for sure. Okay, well, bizarrely enough, Tucker Carlson found a way to somehow link this to the Jews. Of course. What else is new? Tucker Carlson, a day goes by, it ends in a Y, and Tucker Carlson has comment on Israelis somewhere, Jews somewhere. Quote, "How come Mark Levin would label Donald Trump an anti-Jewish racist if he made the exact same statement about Israel?" Well, I mean, Israel isn't persecuting Christians, so there's that. Israel is not allowing the mass killing of Christians, so there is that. In fact, it is the areas where Israel has pulled out where Christians have been severely persecuted, like in Judea, Samaria, and the Gaza Strip. Everywhere where Israel's boots are not, the Christian population has radically declined across the Middle East. Somehow Tucker Carlson is trying to link Islamist terror groups and tacit support from the Nigerian government to Israel, somehow in his newsletter. Quote, "This may be hard for Mark Levin and his ethno-narcissist caucus to accept, but criticism of their beloved country has nothing to do with Judaism. Just like Trump's statement on Nigeria is not an attack on blacks, it's about putting America first." What in the actual hell is he talking about? Well, I mean, the bottom line is, no matter what, Tucker seems to be able to find a way to swivel everything into a story about Israel or Mark Levin or Jews in some form or fashion, which, of course, is part and parcel of the fact that he decided to have on the Nazi supporter Nick Fuentes last week and then gloss him. That glossy interview with Nick Fuentes then allowed Nick Fuentes yesterday to take a victory lap over the vice president, J.D. Vance, because Nick Fuentes believes that since J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson are personally close, and since Tucker Carlson was able to have on Nick Fuentes and massage him without comment from the vice president of the United States, that this means that he now has J.D. Vance's candidacy by the short hairs. Here's Nick Fuentes saying just that.
He's getting squeezed because the Groypers are on the one hand saying, hey, listen, fat boy, we want America first. You want to run for president? We want to hear you say America first. And on the other side, he's got his donors, and they're saying they're horrible anti-Semites. You have to disavow them. You have to forcefully condemn them. Condemn Tucker. Condemn the Groypers. Now, if Vance condemns the Groypers, we are deploying to Iowa.
So that's correct. Nick Fuentes is using Tucker Carlson as cover in order to threaten the vice president of the United States. That's what is happening. So well done to that very, very good friend of the vice president's, Tucker Carlson. It's really solid stuff. Meanwhile, it's a stressful week. I know it's election day in New York and in New Jersey and Virginia, so I wanted to do something fun. I sat down with the greatest mentalist on planet Earth, Oz Perlman, and this actually is just fun, like wildly enjoyable. Here we go. Well, joining us online is Oz Perlman. He's an Emmy award-winning mentalist. You've seen him pretty much everywhere, and he has a brand new book out titled Read Your Mind, Proven Habits for Success from the World's Greatest Mentalists. Oz, thanks so much for your time and joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Ben, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, so tell me about the book. How did the book start? Where did this come from?
Well, for years, people ask me the same question after every show. How do you do it? How do you do it? Right? And what they're really looking for, I realize, is not to know how I'm doing the mentalist tricks, because that's what this is, entertainment. I am not psychic. I am not supernatural. I tell people this over and over and over. This is a learnable skill where I've spent about 3 decades learning how people think. And so what I kind of figured out is to distill what is it that made me successful as a mentalist, and what are those same attributes, skills, and habits that I can teach to you to achieve success in whatever you do. Now, that could be in your personal life, at work, in your relationships. Reading people more effectively is the ultimate cheat code in life. Everyone achieves success by other people helping them as well.
Well, I mean, I think it's such a brilliant point, because when people go to a show like yours, it actually is disheartening if you figure out how the trick is done. It's not as though people actually want to know how the trick is done. What they want to know is that it's a skill that's been cultivated over the course of many, many years. And so you offering people a window into doing that, I think, is really an incredible thing. So I had heard that you actually wanted to do something on the show. So I'm totally up for that. So because frankly, your stuff's amazing. So.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to leave that till the end, because if I do it now, your brain is scrambled. So I'm going to tell you more about the book, but I'm leaving that as the cherry on the sundae. I always save the best for last. That's in the book.
So what are some of the biggest tips that you have in the book?
So the chapters go through and they break down a lot of different things that I think apply to everyone's life. One of the biggest is when I was a teenager, I was not this extrovert. I didn't have the confidence to go on stage in front of thousands or millions of people. Where did that develop? So the two big things that the book kicks off with is how to overcome fear of rejection, which I think sinks more dreams than anything else. It's the fear of failure that doesn't allow you to actually go for your goals. And the second one is how to supercharge your confidence. Like, ways that you can do this now so it doesn't take years of repetition, but how do you rewire your brain and trick your brain? Because that's effectively what I do with people. I know how people think. So I'm trying to help you get inside your own brain to see what's holding you back. And the confidence is such a big one. A couple other massive things is note-taking, which sounds so silly, but note-taking and your memory, improving both of those tactics have given me a leg up on my competition at what I do by orders of magnitude. And they're so silly, but I want to teach you actionable, practical takeaways that you're going to do today, not pie in the sky. The book is action items. Start this today. And if I did my job well, people are leaving Amazon reviews in 10 years saying I'm still using the things Oz showed me.
And when you talk about these things that you have to cultivate, how long should it take you to be able to cultivate this if you're starting as an adult? I mean, I know for me, obviously in the job that I have, I started speaking at a very, very young age. And so sort of naturally, if you do things from the time you're young, you end up accruing tens of thousands of hours doing the thing. But if you're starting this as an adult, you're reading your book, how long should it take to start actually seeing the results of some of the things you're teaching?
So I think that results have to happen instantly. And I think for routines to ingrain themselves, typically the first 2 weeks are the hardest. When you start a diet, when you start a fitness regimen, that's when people crumble. Between the 2 and 3 week mark is when you get muscle memory and it starts to become self-fulfilling because you see the rewards. So you keep doing it because you're already getting the rewards. The first 2 or 3 weeks are the hardest. And that's where the book guides you on how to overcome that initial resistance, because those are the pain points where people quit. And I'm well aware of that. I am human just like anyone else. So I've studied what made me successful, what made things work. How do you kind of train your mind in such a way that when you hit those speed bumps, you do not talk yourself out of it, but instead talk yourself into it.
You know, one of the things you mentioned there was overcoming rejection. It really isn't just the rejection itself that you have to overcome. As you say, it's fear of rejection. People are afraid of what it's going to feel like when they are rejected. What's sort of your first tip, just to give us a clue as to how people should move on that?
So the fear is what's crippling. It's not the rejection. Honestly, the rejection, once you take it a few times, you get desensitized, but it's the anxiety. So I'll tell you a great example. When I was 14 years old, I'd been doing magic for 1 year. I got a job at a restaurant walking table to table. God help me. I don't know how I talked my way into it, but I sweet talked my way into this gig. I walked a half a mile from my house. Long story short, when I walked up to tables, nobody wanted to see this 14-year-old shrimpy kid do magic tricks. And it was a real blow to my ego. And I realized if I can't overcome this pain when people keep saying no to me, I'm not going to be able to do this. So I created, for lack of a better term, a split personality. And I tricked my brain into assuming that when people thought negative of me, it wasn't me. It was like having an agent if you're in entertainment. They didn't like Oz the magician. They don't know Oz Perlman the person. And that way I wasn't internalizing it. I want to give you just a great visual metaphor. If I give you a bowl of water and I give you salt and you fill the water with salt, that's now salt water. No matter what you do, your mood is ruined. You've internalized the rejection. If you can find a way in your brain, and I show you how to do it, to put a piece of plexiglass in the middle where all the salt only gets poured into one side, then the other side remains fresh water. You're going to do that with your own psyche so that you don't take that pain and hurt and rejection and feel it. You move it off of yourself. It deflects. And when you hit a no, when people say no, I hear in my head a not yet. I'm going to find a way to win them over. I'm going to find a way to achieve these goals. And that's a mindset game. That has nothing to do with external factors. That's internal.
You know, when you first started doing this, obviously you started doing this as a kid. Yeah, I think the thing that people mistake about very successful people, and you obviously are top of your industry, is how long people have to sort of work in obscurity in order to get there. People see you and they're like, oh, you must have instantly been a success, but it's always an instant success, 10, 15, 20 years in the making. So when was sort of your first break where you realized that you were now a huge success at what you did?
Well, I mean, this past week has been wild. My book is #3 on all of Amazon, which is beyond surreal. And I'm such a competitive SOB that I'm trying to gun for #1 still, even though Diary of a Wimpy Kid is beating me. And I bought the book for my kids, so I stabbed myself in the back. But shout out to Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I love those books. I did America's Got Talent in 2015. And that was 10 years after I quit my job on Wall Street. And you called it obscurity. I was a guy who was working the bar mitzvah sector. I was working bridal showers. I was going table to table at restaurants 4 nights a week, getting in those reps, learning how to improve my craft. And even when I tried out for America's Got Talent, I only got on the 3rd try. So when people say to me, oh, well, you were on that show, so I know why you got famous. How many times did you try out? I didn't give up after the first time or the second. I went back to the drawing board. And like I said, again, that phrase in my mind, it's truly the way I'm wired. It's not a no when it comes to my goals. When someone says, you're not going to get on Joe Rogan, you're not going to get on Ben Shapiro, I go, not yet, not no. I will find a way. I will keep taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but eventually I will get there. And so my mind creates the opportunities, because once you've decided to give up and you have a no mentality, you don't search for the moments that you can, there's always those little moments. Somebody knows somebody. How do you win people over? There's a chapter in the book about mentors, and so many people have uplifted me in my career. They have helped me. I'm sure people have helped you, where they've given you knowledge, they've given you opportunities, and there's ways to win people over and have relationships that are give and take, not just take. I've learned that I want to give people much, much more, so that the moment when I want to ask them for a favor, they're already willing to help me. They want to help me. And you want the same in your life. You want people to be your champions.
Well, the book is Read Your Mind, Proven Habits for Success from the world's greatest mentalist. Oz Perlman is the mission. There you see, he brought it on screen. So now you can see it. Yeah, I don't have a copy. He does. So we're able to make this happen.
We're getting you one right away, Ben.
Well, I appreciate that, because I definitely will read it. So I would be remiss if I did not allow our audience to see a little taste of what it is that you do. So go for it.
Let's do something. So you asked me, when did things blow up? I was on Joe Rogan earlier this year. I guessed his ATM PIN code, broke the internet because he got angry, visibly disturbed. And so what the comments said is, let me ask you a question. Does anyone know your ATM PIN code?
No.
Does your wife know it?
My wife does. We share a bank account.
Yeah. So you share a PIN. So right away, right there in the comments, people go, well, what if he got to Ben's wife? Right. And that's what people think. They think that I ask questions that I already know the answer to. So what if we switch gears and I couldn't have known who knows your PIN code. You go to a code that nobody else would know, not even your wife, something else with a meaning to you, and that your producer wouldn't know, that nobody would know. Can you try to, I don't know again where this comes from or what this is, but what code is there that has a meaning to you? Is there something like that? It's not a birthday, is it?
Sure. It is not a birthday. It's actually a mistaken number I once typed in, years ago, and then it just became the code that I remember.
That's perfect. Is there anybody in the world that would know this, or any way I could have found this out online, or sleuthing, or private investigators, or all these crazy theories?
No.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to lie to me. Don't tell me the real code. Make up a fake code right now. Just make one up. Go. Give me a 4-digit code that's not the real one. Say it.
9233.
9233, 9233. So right away, most people swing big. They try to avoid the same number. 9233. Most people can't avoid doing at least one of the same numbers when I rush them. If I had not rushed you, you would have likely not switched. You would have switched all the numbers. If your number was 1, 2, 3, 4, you would have done 5, 6, 7, 8. My guess is one of the numbers are the same. Look at you smiling. Now I know. And I think the first number, 9233, last 2 numbers were repeats. There's repeats in your code. Think of the first digit. You did a 9. You're a man of extremes. I like it. 1. The first number is a 1, isn't it, of your real code?
Yes.
This is not staged, Ben. This is not,
no,
this is not what I would ask you. Now, 9233. Where did the threes go? You know what I think? I think the threes went at the beginning. They were the flip 1-1. The code starts with a 1 and a 1. Is that correct? It's 11. And then you screwed up with the 3. You left the 3 at the end. 1183. Is that the code?
What the? Yes, that's the code. That's wild. Whoa. Whoa, dude. Okay. Whoa. That's insane. That's totally insane.
Read your mind, everybody.
Folks.
I'm not going to teach you to guess Ben Shapiro's pin code, but I will show you how to get inside the heads of people around you to achieve success, because that is the ultimate hack in life, is knowing what people are thinking and getting inside your own head.
Good Lord, that's crazy. Okay, go check out. I mean, listen, if you can read that book and then you can do that to everybody, you can make yourself a very rich person. Go check that out. Read Your Mind.
Use your powers only for good.
Yeah, exactly. Read Your Mind, Proven Habits for Success from the World's Greatest Mentalist. I mean, hard to argue that he's not the world's greatest, that he's not the world's greatest mentalist after watching that. That's unbelievable, guys. All right, Oz, thanks so much for the time. And I'm going to get you out of here before you start cracking into, my trading accounts.
Thank you, Ben. I might have already. I'm not going to lie to you.
Alrighty, folks, the show continues for our members right now. We will dive into the vaunted Ben Shapiro Show mailbag. Remember, you have to be a member in order to ask questions and have them answered over there. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click the link in the description and join us.